History is often told through grand tales of kings, queens, and epic battles. We remember the big moments, the crowns and the castles. But what about the small things? What about the history we can hold in our hands? The history of a nation is also written on its coins. These small metal discs tell a story of everyday life, of buying bread, paying workers, and saving for a dream. In Britain, the story of copper coins is especially important. For centuries, they were the money of the people. They were used by everyone, from a farmer in the countryside to a shopkeeper in London. These coins were not made of shiny gold or silver, but of humble copper. And that is what makes them so special. These copper coins were the backbone of the British economy for a very long time. They allowed ordinary people to participate in trade in a way they never could before. Before copper coins, making small purchases was very difficult. Imagine trying to buy a loaf of bread with a valuable silver coin. It was like trying to buy a candy bar with a $100 bill today. You would need change, but small change didn't really exist. The introduction of copper money changed everything. It made the economy more flexible and fair. It connected the rich and the poor, the city and the countryside, in a shared system of value. Think about the incredible journey these coins have been on. A single copper penny from the 1800s could have been in the pocket of a soldier fighting in a foreign land. It might have been used by a factory worker during the Industrial Revolution. It could have been dropped in a church collection plate or used to buy a ticket for the first ever steam train. Each scratch and mark on an old coin is a testament to its journey through time. It has witnessed history unfold. By studying these coins, we get a tangible connection to the past and the countless anonymous people who built the Britain we know today. In this journey, we will explore the complete history of these fascinating objects. We will start from a time when there were no official copper coins at all. We will see why they were so desperately needed and how they first came to be. We will meet the famous and sometimes infamous coins that have lined the pockets of the British people. From the first tiny farthings to the massive cartwheel pennies and all the way to the coins we use today. This is not just a history of money. It is a history of Britain, told one copper coin at a time. It is a story full of royal decrees, public anger, and incredible change. Let's travel back in time to the 16th and 17th centuries. Imagine you live in England under the rule of Queen Elizabeth I or King James I. The smallest official coin made by the Royal Mint was a silver halfpenny. This coin was tiny, easily lost, and still worth too much for the smallest purchases. What if you just wanted to buy a single egg or a pint of cheap ale? There was no official coin small enough for these simple transactions. This was a huge problem for everyday people. Workers were often paid for a day's labour, but they struggled to buy the small things they needed to live. This lack of small change was holding the economy back. Because the government was not making small coins, people found their own solutions. Private businesses and local towns started making their own unofficial coins, called tokens. These were usually made of cheap metals like copper, lead, or tin. A baker might create a token that was good for one loaf of bread at his shop. A pub owner might issue a token that could be exchanged for a drink. From about 1648 to 1672, there was an explosion of these private tokens. Tens of thousands of different designs were created across England, Wales, and Ireland. This shows just how desperate people were for small change. These tokens were a clever solution, but they also had big problems. A token from a baker in London was useless to a farmer in York. The value of these tokens was not guaranteed. If a business closed, its tokens became completely worthless pieces of metal. This created a lot of confusion and instability. The government saw this as a challenge to its authority. The king or queen was supposed to be the only one with the power to make money. This private system of tokens was messy, unreliable, and, in the eyes of the crown, illegal. The kingdom needed an official, reliable source of small change. The pressure on the monarchy to do something was immense. For decades, rulers had resisted the idea of making official copper coins. They saw copper as a base metal, not worthy of carrying the monarch's portrait. Royal coins were for gold and silver, the metals of kings. But the needs of the people and the growing economy could no longer be ignored. The chorus of voices calling for official small denomination coins grew louder and louder. The age of private tokens was coming to an end, and the stage was set for the Royal Mint to finally step in and create the coins the nation was crying out for. This was the dawn of official British copper. The big moment finally came in 1672. King Charles II was on the throne. He had seen the chaos caused by the thousands of private tokens. He knew something had to be done, so he issued a royal proclamation. For the first time, the Royal Mint was ordered to produce official copper coins for the kingdom. These first coins were the halfpenny and the farthing. A halfpenny was worth half of a penny, and a farthing was worth a quarter of a penny. These coins were designed to replace the unreliable private tokens and provide the public with the small change they so desperately needed. This was a revolutionary step in British history. The design of these new coins was very important. They had to look official and trustworthy. On one side, known as the obverse, was a portrait of King Charles II, facing left. This showed that the coin had the king's authority. On the other side, the reverse, was a seated figure of Britannia. Britannia is the female symbol of Great Britain, much like Lady Liberty is for the United States. She held a spear and an olive branch, symbols of power and peace. The image of Britannia on coins was a powerful piece of national branding. It was said that the model for this first Britannia was one of the king's favourite mistresses, Frances Stuart. These new copper coins were a huge success. The public quickly accepted them. They were well made, their value was guaranteed by the crown, and they could be used anywhere in the kingdom. The government made all the old private tokens illegal, and the new official coppers took their place. For the first time, a worker could receive a few copper coins and know that they could buy a meal anywhere. This made daily life much easier and helped the economy grow. The farthing and halfpenny became essential parts of life for the next few hundred years, a constant presence in the pockets of the British people. Of course, there were challenges. Counterfeiting was a big problem. Making fake copper coins was much easier than faking gold or silver ones. The government had to constantly fight against criminals who were making their own illegal copies. Over the years, the designs of the farthing and halfpenny were updated with each new monarch. The portrait on the front would change, but the image of Britannia on the back remained a constant and beloved feature. These first small coppers laid the foundation for a monetary system that would last for centuries and become a model for other nations around the world. By the late 1700s, Britain faced another coin crisis. The official copper coins were being illegally copied on a massive scale. It was estimated that more than half of the copper coins in circulation were fakes. The government's production methods were outdated, and they couldn't keep up with the demand for good official currency. The public was losing faith in the money. A new solution was needed, and it came from a brilliant industrialist named Matthew Boulton. He had a factory in Soho, Birmingham, that was equipped with the world's first steam-powered coin presses. He promised he could make coins that were almost impossible to fake. In 1797, Boulton was finally given a contract to produce new copper coins for Great Britain. What he created was truly revolutionary. He made the first ever British copper penny and a new twopence coin, and they were huge. The penny weighed exactly 1 ounce, and the twopence coin weighed a massive 2 ounces. They were so big and heavy that people immediately gave them a nickname, the cartwheels. This was part of Boulton's anti-counterfeiting plan. The coins were made to be their exact value in copper. A criminal would gain no profit from melting them down or making lighter copies. The design of the cartwheel coins was as innovative as their production. They were the first British coins to have the date on the same side as the monarch, King George III. The coins also had a thick raised rim with the lettering stamped into it, which was another feature designed to make them difficult to copy. On the reverse, there was a new, powerful image of Britannia. She was shown sitting on a rock in the sea, holding a trident, with a ship sailing in the background. This symbolized Britain's growing naval power and its command of the oceans. The coin was a piece of propaganda, as much as it was a piece of currency. The public's reaction to the cartwheels was mixed. On one hand, people trusted them. They were clearly well made and official. Their weight gave them a sense of real value. On the other hand, they were incredibly impractical. Carrying a few of the twopence coins was like carrying a handful of rocks in your pocket. They were too heavy and bulky for everyday use. Because of this, the massive twopence coin was only ever minted in 1797 and was never made again. The cartwheel penny was also only produced for a short time. Despite their short life, they are one of the most famous and collectible coins in British history, a symbol of the Industrial Revolution. The long reign of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1901 was a golden age for the British Empire and for its copper coinage. During this period, Britain was the world's leading industrial power, and its money was used all over the globe. The copper coins of the Victorian era are some of the most iconic and recognisable in British history. For most of her reign, the main copper coins in circulation were the penny, the halfpenny and the farthing. These coins featured a beautiful portrait of the young Queen Victoria on the obverse, a design that is still beloved by collectors today. For the first part of her reign, the coins were made of pure copper and were quite thick and heavy, similar to the old cartwheel pennies, but, smaller. They are often called bun pennies because of the way the Queen's hair is styled in a bun at the back of her head. These coins were everywhere. They paid for goods in the rapidly growing cities. They were sent in letters to family members, and they were carried by soldiers and sailors across the vast British Empire. The image of Britannia, still on the reverse, was a constant reminder of Britain's power and influence around the world. A major change happened in 1860. The Royal Mint stopped using pure copper and switched to a bronze alloy, which is a mix of copper, tin and zinc. Bronze was harder, more durable, and wore down more slowly than pure copper. This meant the coins would last longer in circulation. The new bronze coins were also made much thinner and lighter than the old copper ones. This made them far more convenient to carry and use. The famous bun penny design was replaced with a new portrait of the Queen, and these new lighter bronze coins would set the standard for the next 100 years. The Victorian era also saw the minting of some very small and interesting copper coins, like the half-farthing and the quarter-farthing. These coins were worth a tiny fraction of a penny. They were not really intended for use in Britain itself, but were created for use in some of Britain's colonies, like Ceylon, which is modern-day Sri Lanka. However, they were still legal tender in the UK. Imagine a coin worth just 1/16 of a penny. These tiny coins show how the needs of a global empire influenced the money being made back in London. The Victorian era truly cemented the copper penny as a symbol of Britain. The 20th century brought immense change to Britain, and its coins changed along with it. The familiar penny, halfpenny and farthing continued into the new century, now bearing the portraits of new monarchs like King Edward VII, George V and George VI. The classic design with Britannia on the reverse remained a comforting constant through times of great upheaval. During the First and Second World Wars, these small bronze coins became symbols of national resilience. They were used by soldiers in the trenches to buy small comforts and by families at home dealing with rationing. They really were the currency of a nation at war. One of the most interesting stories from this period involves the 1933 penny. In the early 1930s, the Royal Mint had a huge surplus of pennies. There were just so many in circulation that they decided they didn't need to mint any new ones in 1933. However, there was a tradition that a complete set of coins from the current year was buried under the foundations of important new buildings. To meet this small demand, the Mint produced a tiny number of 1933 pennies. Fewer than 10 are believed to exist. Because of its extreme rarity, the 1933 George V penny has become one of the most famous and valuable British coins, a legendary treasure for collectors. After the Second World War, Britain began to look towards the future. The old coin system, with its pounds, shillings and pence, was seen as complicated and old-fashioned. The farthing, the smallest coin, had become almost worthless due to inflation. Its last year of issue was 1956, and it was officially demonetized or removed from legal circulation at the end of 1960. People were sad to see the little coin go. It had been a part of British life for nearly 300 years. Then, in 1969, the halfpenny also ceased to be minted, in preparation for a much bigger change that was on the horizon. The end of an era came in 1971. Britain was about to switch to a new decimal currency system. The old, large bronze penny, which had been a familiar presence for over a century, was about to be replaced. The final old pennies were minted in 1967, though some special collector versions were made in 1970. The public had a deep affection for the old penny. It was a link to the Victorian past, to the wartime spirit, and to generations of their own families. Saying goodbye to the old penny was, for many people, like saying goodbye to a piece of British history itself. On February 15th, 1971, Britain underwent a monetary revolution. This day was called Decimal Day. The old system of pounds, shillings and pence, often written as SSD, which had its roots in Roman times, was swept away overnight. It was replaced by a new, simpler decimal system, just like the one used in the United States. In the new system, £1 was equal to 100 new pence. This was a massive change for the public. For weeks, newspapers and television shows were filled with guides and songs to help people understand the new money. It was a confusing but exciting time. With the new system came new coins. The old, large bronze penny was replaced by a completely new, smaller bronze coin. There was the new penny, or 1p, and the 2 new pence, or 2p. To help people tell them apart from the old money, the word new was included in their design. These coins were much smaller and lighter than their predecessors. The 1p coin was about the size of an American dime, while the 2p coin was slightly larger than an American quarter. A new, small halfpenny coin, half p, was also introduced, but it was very unpopular and was withdrawn from circulation in 1984. The design of the new copper coins was modern and forward-looking. Instead of the traditional image of Britannia, the reverse of the new 1p coin featured a crowned portcullis with chains. A portcullis is a type of heavy, latticed gate, and it is the emblem of the British Parliament. This design was chosen to represent the authority of the government. The 2p coin featured the badge of the Prince of Wales, which consists of 3 ostrich feathers within a coronet. These designs were a clear break from the past, signalling a new era for Britain and its currency. The portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the front was also updated. Over the years, the new coppers have seen some changes. In 1982, the word new was dropped from the design, and the coins simply read 1 penny or 2 pence. A more significant change happened in 1992. Due to the rising price of copper, the Royal Mint changed the metal content of the 1p and 2p coins. Instead of being made of solid bronze, they began to be made from copper-plated steel. This made them much cheaper to produce. You can tell the difference easily. The older bronze coins are not magnetic, while the newer copper-plated steel coins will stick to a magnet. This change marked the end of the truly copper coin in everyday circulation. For American readers, it can be fun to compare the history of British copper coins with America's own famous copper coin, the penny or 1-cent piece. Both coins have a long and rich history and have been central to the daily lives of ordinary people in their respective countries. The first official US 1-cent coin, the Fugio cent, was authorized in 1787, over a century after Britain's first copper halfpenny. This first American coin famously featured the motto, "Mind your business," a piece of classic American directness, quite different from the royal portraits and symbols of naval power seen on British coins. One of the biggest differences is size and weight, especially in the early days. The British cartwheel penny of 1797 was a true giant, weighing a full ounce of copper. The first large American cents, minted from 1793, were also big and chunky, but they never reached the colossal size of the cartwheel. Both countries eventually moved to smaller, more practical coins. The US switched to a small cent in 1857, a few years before Britain made its similar move to a smaller bronze penny in 1860. Both nations realized that convenience was more important than having a coin's metal value match its face value. The designs also tell a story of different national identities. British copper coins almost always featured the portrait of the reigning king or queen on the obverse. This was a symbol of the monarchy and the state's authority. On the reverse, the figure of Britannia was a long-standing symbol of national pride and maritime strength. In contrast, early American cents avoided images of living people. reflecting a rejection of monarchy. Instead, they featured symbols of liberty, like the figure of Lady Liberty with flowing hair. It wasn't until 1909 that a real person, Abraham Lincoln, appeared on the US cent, a tribute to a great president, not a ruling monarch. Even the names we use are different. In Britain, the main copper coin has always been the penny, or pence in the plural. In the US, the official name is the 1-cent piece, but everyone calls it a penny. This is a direct linguistic inheritance from Britain. Americans borrowed the name, but the coin itself evolved in its own unique way. Today, both countries face a similar debate. With inflation, is the lowest value coin still worth producing? The US continues to mint its 1-cent piece, while Britain's 1p and 2p coins face an uncertain future, showing how both nations are grappling with the changing role of physical cash. Today, in 2025, the humble copper coin finds itself at a crossroads in the United Kingdom. The 1p and 2p coins, the direct descendants of the first farthings of 1672, are still legal tender, but their role in society has dramatically changed. In an age of contactless payments, online shopping and digital banking, the need for physical cash, especially small change, is declining rapidly. Many people simply tap their card or phone to pay for small items like a coffee or a newspaper. The little bronze-coloured discs often end up in a jar at home rather than being actively spent. The economic case for the 1p and 2p coins is also under scrutiny. For many years, the cost of producing and distributing these coins has been very close to, and sometimes even more than, their face value of 1 or 2 pence. This leads to a logical question: why is the government spending money to make money that is worth so little? Several countries, such as Canada, Australia and Ireland, have already stopped producing their lowest denomination coins and have implemented a system of rounding, where the final cash total is rounded to the nearest 5 cents. The UK has debated this possibility for years. Public opinion on the matter is divided. For many, especially older generations, the penny is a familiar and cherished part of the currency. They argue that removing it would lead to businesses rounding prices up, causing a small but noticeable increase in the cost of living. Charities also raise concerns as they receive a significant amount of their donations through the collection of small coins. The copper jar is a staple in many British homes, and these collected coins often find their way to good causes. The emotional and cultural attachment to the penny is strong. The future of the UK's copper-plated steel coins remains uncertain. The Royal Mint continues to produce them, but in much smaller quantities than in the past. In some recent years, no new 2p coins were minted for general circulation at all, as there were already enough to meet the dwindling demand. It seems likely that, within the next decade, the UK will follow other nations and phase out its smallest coins. When that day comes, it will mark the end of a story that stretches back over 350 years. The coin of the common person, the witness to industrial revolution and world wars, will finally become a piece of history, a relic to be found only in museums and the collections of enthusiasts.